What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. Let me just first off start by apologizing for the lack of videos over the weekend. As I mentioned in the post I made, mentioning the upcoming videos that we got coming out, I mentioned that I got a bit of a cold late Thursday night and was dealing with that Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday as well. Plus, it was Easter, so I figured I'd just rest for the long weekend. I was going to do a video on Friday, but then I wasn't feeling up to it due to coughing and constantly going through a whole box of Kleenex. So feeling a lot better now. So we're going to get some content out for you guys, and kind of perfect timing too, considering that the comments from Patrik Allvin, Jim Rutherford at the end of the season media, like their specific part. I know the players did their bit on Friday. We might get into that a little bit later in the week, unfortunately, because I really want to tackle what Allvin and Rutherford said, in particular, some topics. And we're gonna start, hot right off the gate. We're gonna talk about Patrik Allvin's comments when it comes to Elias Pettersson and whether or not he'd still be willing to trade him before July 1st. I am gonna go over some of those quotes from an article, and just so I know some things that he said, even though I did watch the at least a couple clips on Instagram, so I know what they said. But let's go ahead and dive right into this. Let me just bring up the article. So I'll leave a link to the article in the description down below, as I always do. So you guys, if you would like, you guys can read along with me. But we're going to go over an article on Canucks Army, as we normally do. And it's titled Canucks Keeping Options Open When It Comes to Trading Elias Pettersson. Articles by Tyler Cool. Apologies if I mispronounce your name. From yesterday. And it just has a brief little summary about what Allvin said in regards to Pettersson. Talks a little bit more about their comments towards Pettersson in general and just his season. But let's dive right into it and start off with a quote from Patrik Allvin, where he is essentially asked if he's willing to keep trade conversations open in regards to Elias Pettersson. And he basically said, I will keep all my options open. He started by saying that, and then he went back and said the quote, which is the title of this video, I'd be stupid not to keep my options open. So I got to say, that's a bold move on Allvin's part to use that particular wording, saying I'd be stupid not to keep my options open. Everybody knows Allvin's not really smart when he words stuff. He just kind of spouts something out and then doesn't think before he says it. He's done that before with Brock Besser, where he made that comment about, basically saying, if you knew what I was offered, I'd be running out of here, or along those lines. He doesn't sometimes think before he speaks. He just, I don't know if it's a language barrier or just his English isn't all that, but he's got some sound bites, and some haven't been all that great. And I don't know if, saying in particular, especially at this media availability, actually using the word, I'd be stupid not to keep my options open. He could have just left it as, I'm going to keep my options open when it comes to whether or not I'll trade Elias Pettersson or not. I just think it's in kind of poor taste that he says I'd be stupid. That feels as though he's, it's a bit of a, hit on Petey. But I won't dive too much into that or really look into that too much. I just thought he could have maybe worded that a little bit better. Yes, it makes a good soundbite, but at the same time, you're not the best when it comes to things that he says or the way he words stuff. So maybe dial that back a little bit, just a little bit, because it's looking like what you said about Besser, at the deadline, it's coming back to bite you in the ass, because it's looking like Besser after July 1st will not be a Vancouver Canuck. And if it's because of that, and Besser has made it known that, or at least I actually had a conversation with David Quadrelli of Canucks Army and Canucks Conversation at the watch party. He even said, Besser, when Allvin made that comment, Besser's camp and Besser was not happy about it. It pissed him off. So perhaps that will play a factor in whether or not Besser decides to stay or go. But we'll leave that for the Brock Besser video that I have coming up and planned. So let's continue, with this article. The article goes on to say Pettersson had a significantly down year. While he had battled injuries, limiting him to just 64 games. The 26-year-old scored 15 goals and 30 assists for 45 points, his lowest total since the COVID-shortened 2021 season. However, Allvin admitted that he isn't concerned about Pettersson's auspicious point production from this season. Allvin goes on to be quoted as saying, I do believe that the last 3 years, Elias had one down year, which was this year. It's not about the individual points. It's about playing the right way in order to win. Pettersson's name arose in trade rumors once word got out about the off-ice drama between he and now former Canuck JT Miller. President of Hockey Operations Jim Rutherford said back in January that there was no good solution in fixing the locker room soap opera. Even when Miller was dealt to the Rangers, some believe there was still an avenue for Pettersson to be traded as well. Pettersson was scrutinized for his play following the Miller deal, given that he was in the first season of his 8-year contract extension that he signed in March of last year. The deal carries a cap hit of $11.6 million to the 2031-32 campaign, with a full no-move clause starting July 1st. Rutherford said before he suffered an oblique injury that prematurely ended his season, Pettersson was going in the right direction. However, the veteran executive says that Pettersson needs to work on being a more well-rounded asset to the team. This later goes on to quote Jim Rutherford. He's going to have to buy into being a complete player. Rutherford said he's going to have to buy into working hard. We know that he's working hard, but he's going to have to do that all summer. He's going to have to buy into what the coach wants him to do. And part of buying in is being a complete player. If you want to have a contending team, he's got the ability to do it. Just got to buy into it and prepare properly in the offseason. With Pettersson's lack of production, among other factors on and off the ice, the Canucks finished 5th in the Pacific Division, missing the Stanley Cup playoffs for the 4th time in 5 seasons. While Allvin stated that the team is open to hearing offers for the Swedish star, he admitted that he has faith in Pettersson, that he can be a difference maker in Vancouver. Goes on to quote Allvin as saying, we still believe Elias is more than capable of coming back, as he has shown in the past year in Vancouver. I think this is about taking his game to the next level. It's encouraging to see his determination and work ethic. So that's interesting from Patrik Allvin. I do want to mention something as it watching these clips and also watching some other podcasts like Sakaris and Price, Canucks Conversation, and getting their takes and taking little bits of that and just hearing their thoughts. And then I believe it was Sakaris and Price where they brought up the fact that Allvin and Rutherford come from Pittsburgh. They come from that organization, and that organization had Sidney Crosby. So they have this mindset of what they want their superstar player, which is Elias in this case, to be. Like, they have a very high bar when it comes to what they feel as though a superstar should handle themselves, should be playing, should be training, and all that stuff. They have a very high bar because of Sidney Crosby and them having spent so much time with Sidney Crosby. I do think and feel as though Allvin and Rutherford are, pushing Elias to that bar. That's the example that they're setting. They want Elias to get to that level. But thing is, that bar is so high. And I don't think Elias can get to that level. Like, there's no question about it. Elias Pettersson is not Sidney Crosby. So maybe Allvin and Rutherford need to not have that mindset on, let's make this guy the next Sidney Crosby. Let's get him doing the same thing, Sid did, training, production, playing, and, being a leader on and off the ice. Pettersson's not Sidney Crosby. So maybe they need to lower that bar a little bit and not use Sidney Crosby as a example of where they want Pettersson to get to. Yes, could he have potential to maybe come even close to what Crosby is? I don't know. I honestly cannot answer that question right now. But I do feel as though it's putting a little too much pressure on Elias Pettersson with that mindset, if you guys understand what I'm, trying to get at here. And they need to realize you're not in Pittsburgh anymore. You're in Vancouver. Vancouver does not have a guy the caliber of Sidney Crosby. So you need to stop using that as a focus point on, putting Crosby as an example, or having that bar, that Crosby bar, let's call it that. You can't have that here. But let me know in the comment section below, do you guys agree with that? Do you guys understand where I'm coming from with that? Do you guys think as though Allvin and Rutherford have set the bar a little too high for Elias, with that Crosby connection and, with them bringing that from Pittsburgh to Vancouver, or that mindset? Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys agree with that or not. It was just something that popped into my head and made me really think, maybe they're putting too much pressure on Elias. Like, yes, he's making $11.6 million. And that's on PD. But, perhaps they've set the bar a little too high for Elias and need to bring it down, maybe several notches. But once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. Yeah. And then let me just double check, see any more about this article. No, there's not. So I'm gonna go into my sponsor read, and then we're gonna close this video out. But let me get into my sponsor read first. Are you looking for an energy drink that is jitter-free, crash-free, no sugars, no artificial colors or dyes, and no calories? Then Dubby Energy is for you. With over 15 plus unique custom-made flavors, go ahead and get a starter sampler pack, which includes 3 different flavors. Use code TheLineChange to get 10% off your next purchase. Dubby Energy, your taste buds' favorite energy drink. All right, so that's gonna do it for this video. Once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of my whole Crosby bar, I don't know, philosophy, if you want to call it, or something, or that take on, do you think Allvin and Rutherford are putting a little too much pressure on PD and have set the bar a little too high for him? Having come from Pittsburgh and, having already worked with Sidney Crosby, having seen that, while they were in Pittsburgh, and they kind of want to mold, like use that same model. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with that. Also, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of Allvin's comments in regards to Pettersson, and him saying that he's going to keep his options open whether or not he trades Petey. In my personal opinion, despite what Allvin just said, I don't think they're going to trade Petey before July 1st. I think they want to see how his training goes up until July 1st. I mean, Allvin, I believe it was Allvin himself even said, Petey was, at least the last week, has been working out at Rogers Arena. He's been training at Rogers Arena since the season ended. So that is a good positive step for Elias. And, obviously they got into the whole JT Petey stuff, but we're not going to get into that, as I'm going to cover that in a separate video that's not coming out next, maybe possibly tomorrow, as I have another video that I want to talk about before that, but we will get into that in that video. But if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you're not subscribed to The Line Change, go ahead and smash that subscribe button to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, especially during the off season. You can find us on social media, as you can see above me. You can find us on Twitter /X at Line Change Van. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can also find us on Facebook. Search The Line Change, and you can find our Facebook page. Can't really see in the corner down here, so sorry, but you can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well if you prefer a audio version. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and go Canucks go, and I'll see you guys in the next video.